What's been the reaction of European countries to this new defense plan, Rearm Europe, as it's known?
Yeah, the EU's prime ministers and presidents just entered here on the red carpet behind me, and they gave some of their reactions to that defense white paper that was put out yesterday by the European Commission, outlining the details of President Ursula von der Leyen's Rearm Europe plan. The reaction was generally positive. For all of the leaders except for Viktor Orban of Hungary and Robert Fico of Slovakia, who have been resisting this effort to rearm. Last night, Viktor Orban had a meeting with his far-right allies, Marine Le Pen from France and Matteo Salvini from Italy, and they outlined their opposition to this Rearm Europe plan, to any kind of transfer of defense responsibility or capability by the European Union. They call this an EU power grab, but for their part, the rest of the leaders, other than Orban and Fico, have been supportive of it. Giorgia Meloni from Italy has been a bit skeptical. She doesn't like the name Rearm Europe. She doesn't think citizens are on board with that type of language. And she's generally been reticent about increasing Italian military spending. And polls have shown that it doesn't enjoy a lot of public support in Italy. The situation is quite different from, for instance, UK, France, or Germany. But we also heard leaders who are traditionally neutral praising the plan. We had Austria's chancellor coming in here behind me saying that while Austria remains neutral, not a NATO member, that they do endorse the plan, the idea of rearming Europe, and they themselves will be increasing their defense spending, not by very much, but a bit. Ireland, likewise, another non-NATO neutral country, has expressed support for the plan, even though their plans to invest in military equipment is pretty limited. The plan centers around this 150 billion euro fund that can loan money to EU member states in order to buy military equipment. The big controversy, though, is how that money will be raised. There's this idea to raise the money using EU common debt on the markets. The northern frugal countries don't like these eurobond ideas, and so we're going to expect a pretty forthright discussion on that today. There's also the Buy European clause that's in the plan, which says that the military equipment spent with this EU money needs to be purchased from Europe and not from the United States, not from the UK either for the moment, although it's anticipated that will change once they agree a security relationship. France has been warning that if they spend this new EU military spending on American equipment, the American government can block the use of those arms anytime in the future. They've done so in the past. That is part of U.S. law. And so France has been pushing for this limit so that they can de-risk the military equipment and not run into this situation where the U.S. government would be preventing them from sending this equipment to Ukraine or even using it in a future war. So that's expected to divide the leaders today. We're also going to have discussions about the EU budget, what can be used to fund this new defense plan. The plan says that cohesion funds, which traditionally go to poor regions to help them, Southern European countries are very dependent on those funds. Giorgia Meloni does not like the idea of those funds going to military spending.
Dave, the EU leaders are also meeting 2 days after that much hyped phone call between the US president and Russia's Vladimir Putin, where it seems that the two sides, Moscow and Washington, want to solve the war in Ukraine bilaterally without the Europeans involved. How is Europe trying to stay relevant in all of this?
Yeah, there's been huge frustration here that Europe has been cut out of the loop, and the discussion has been, okay, how do we make ourselves relevant? How do we deserve a seat at the table? So today they're talking about these efforts to rearm and to talk about security guarantees for Ukraine that they say should make them part of the discussion. Then simultaneously, the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is convening a meeting of European defense chiefs in London. It's happening at exactly the same time as this summit, where again, they're going to be talking about the security guarantees, the military buildup that Europe can give to be relevant at the table. But the big question is, who would speak for Europe at that table? Who would occupy that chair? There was 2 weeks ago talk about designating a special EU envoy to Ukraine, possibly one of the prime ministers. that would attend those talks with Trump, with Zelensky, with Putin. That idea has kind of fizzled away, and I'm not hearing any talk anymore this week about appointing such a person. So the question remains, would it be Kaja Kallas, the EU's foreign policy chief? Would it be President von der Leyen? Would it be the council chair, Antonio Costa? There's still no clarity on that. And also, there's no signal from Washington that the Trump administration has any intention of involving the Europeans on this, no matter what they do to demonstrate their support or their intentions to beef up their military spending.
That seems to be the case, isn't it, Dave? Thank you very much for that. Dave Keating reporting there for us from Brussels.